get started, over 70% of everybody who watches these videos is not subscribed. So if you do enjoy this video or any of the ones that you might have seen here in the past, consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching. Sometimes I feel like my anger holds me back. Maybe not my anger itself, maybe it's my temper or the way that I take out my anger. I think some people are very good at getting out their anger, dealing with their temper, right? They use it as fuel or motivation. But for me, it's not like that. At least not right now. It's not healthy at all. I want to be somebody who like gets angry and then gets motivated about it. I want to be like that. I don't want to keep being angry because I'm not good and because I'm having trouble. I want to be somebody who thinks through the problem, right? Doesn't get angry about it. Because in fighting games, let's talk in the scope of fighting games real quick. You can't blame anybody but yourself, right? You have to overcome that anger and then find the answer by yourself. It's very hard to do that sometimes. Because if you're anything like me, you play the game and then you lose a bunch and then you feel like you can do better, right? Like you feel like, I know I'm better than this and I want to keep playing. I don't want to get off. That's tilt. That's hard tilting, is when I'm playing and I don't, and like I feel like I could play better and I don't get off or take a break or stop and go into training mode and figure out why I'm losing. I think a lot of it has to do with the ego and how you perceive yourself as a player compared to the person you're playing against. The way you sort of determine that is either like a rank system, or maybe you know the player you're playing against, or maybe it's a streamer or something who has a history of being good in other games. Whatever it may be, you have a reference to how good you think this other person is and how good you think you are in relation to them. When you lose to somebody who you perceive as better than you, I think you don't get as angry, right? You see that as a learning experience. But when you lose to somebody who you perceive as worse than you, it's hard to see that as a learning experience for me. Because in my case, it feels like a failure. It feels like, oh, I trained against this better player and then I played a worse player and I lost, so I failed. In reality, that's not accurate, and I don't think that's how I should be seeing the game at all. Because your perception of yourself is not accurate either. It's not 100% accurate. So you could think that you're better than somebody and you're worse, or they know more than you, or they know more about the matchup than you. There's so many things that I am not factoring in for when I think about things like that, and when I overthink about stuff like that, it just ends up me like spiraling into this dark place where I just say I'm bad at the game. And you've probably seen it in like the past 2-3 videos that I've made, those live commentaries, where it ends up being like, I think the Angie video was like down 0-5 or something by the end of it. That set actually ended 0-12, and I just felt like the worst player to ever touch the game. And that was all the ego talking, right? The ego speaks. And it just told me I wasn't good enough, right? And even after I published that video, I almost deleted it because I was just like so angry in it. Rewatching it, it's very cringy to watch for me, but I felt like it was edited decently to where it could still be entertaining for a certain crowd. But rest assured, I won't be posting stuff like that all the time. I'm not an angry person by any means. It's just sometimes you gotta get it out, right? Sometimes the ego speaks to you and you have to relay what it says. Usually I'm very proud of the videos that I put out, but that one specifically made me really nervous because it was different and it showed a different side, right? I wanted to show some of my own personality, but not that side of it. That was just not a good idea. But I think reflecting on moments like that definitely help, right? It definitely helps me personally just see like how ridiculous I'm being, and how when you get that angry and tilted, you start thinking irrationally in terms of the game. Like I feel like that's where outlandish claims start happening, you know, like saying certain characters are broken or certain things are broken, because you really have no basis for that, and you're so mad. I'm so mad that I don't even stop to lab it. I just try and figure it out on the fly while I'm just not thinking straight. And at some point that just becomes playing the game to play the game, right? Because you feel like you can play better still, but you can't because you're just not thinking straight. You're blinded by so many different aspects of things, right? Your anger, your ego, and whatever the other person's doing. I just can't count, and you probably feel this too, how many situations could have been avoided if I just stopped playing when I got tilted and then just labbed whatever I was like losing to later on when I had calmed down a little bit. Instead of having like this weird sense of pride of grinding it out, you know, that's a big term that people like to say, is they grinded it out. When you grind out a matchup, you're trying to learn. When you're grinding out a matchup while you're angry and trying to win, and then you keep losing, that you're not grinding the matchup, right? You're just trying to get a win. Sometimes it's not about winning, and that's what I have to realize. I have to remind myself of that a lot when I'm playing long sets and I'm losing tons of matches in a row. I get very hung up on the fact that I'm like down 0-15 or 0-20 or whatever the crazy number on the other side may be. Forget that I'm here to learn this character. I'm here to learn how to fight this character, not to beat this character. I think that's what people mean when they say in this genre of game, you have to lose sometimes. Especially in this game that just came out, there's so many like matchup nuances that you're gonna have to learn the hard way and that I'm gonna have to learn the hard way. You can't get angry about it. It almost feels like in school when you're presented with like a new subject in math, for example, or a new topic I should say, and it has like a bunch of problems with, you know, whatever symbols, find x, whatever it may be, and you don't know the formulas yet. You didn't look at those problems and get angry that you couldn't solve them. You looked deeper into the book and found, you know, the formulas. You found how to beat whatever problem you were having an issue with. And I think that is the same approach that I should take in this game and that you should take in this game. I guess that stands true for any fighting game pretty much. That is like a healthy way to go about it. But just like school, not everything works out, you know, that smooth, right? There's going to be things that you just don't know how to beat and that you can't figure out how to beat. That's like when you start having to ask other people for help, you know, when you start asking your local group for help or people online, or you watch replays. You have to go further and further into different resources to solve different problems. For me, it's just overcoming that hurdle of getting angry about it before I can like dive into different resources. That and overcoming the ego and perception of yourself. For example, just last night, I started watching Giovanna guides, like beginner guides, you know, because previously I felt like I was better than that, right? Like I didn't need to watch a beginner's guide. I kind of got a understanding for it. And I had felt comfortable enough with the character that anything that was in a beginner's guide wouldn't help me, but that wasn't the case at all. And I started watching a bunch of guides last night, and I learned a bunch of cool like counter hit combos, different, you know, tools that you can use in neutral that I might have not been using already, along with some other things. But the point being that I finally got over myself for once and watched a guide that I felt like I was better than at one point, and I learned from it. I think that's a valuable lesson to learn as you start to get better, is that going back to the basics or learning the basics from somebody else can always show you new things that you didn't think about. Usually when I watch guides, I like to watch players that I know, right? Like top players, people who have results. But that doesn't mean that the guy who isn't the best in the game and like the best at the character in the world doesn't have something important to say. And I think you should hear him out. Whether you're better than somebody or whether you're worse, however you perceive yourself in relation to that person, you can still learn something from them, and that's important. So for me, it's been my temper, my anger, how I treat the game and how I treat myself after I lose or win or I can't figure out how to beat something, and how I perceive myself in relation to my opponent, my ego basically, that has really stunted my growth since this game came out, basically. But I think it's an important lesson to learn, and I'm glad I realized it sooner rather than later, right? I'm glad I realized that that's becoming an issue at the beginning of the game and not at the end, when it's pretty much too late. Anyways, I want to talk a little bit about the channel real quick. I know it's been in a weird place lately. I've tried some different kind of content, and that's just because the viewership has been kind of low, you know? We had like an explosive start, you know, the channel got to 1,000 subs and very quick, few months, and now it's been a few more months and that it's like at 1,400. So I feel like I needed to try something new, show like a little bit more personality maybe, or you know, I want people to come here for the game but stay for me, which sounds kind of weird to say out loud, but I think you know what I mean. I think people in the FGC that are successful content wise are liked generally. I just want to make sure I'm delivering like a genuine product at the end of the day, something that I really like to make. So you'll probably see a mix of everything that you've seen, right? From the guides to these commentary videos to the live ones. But yeah, I just feel like sometimes you need to switch it up to maybe get some more traffic, but it's just not working out. So my best bet is to do what I enjoy, and hopefully the numbers will come back. That said, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, and thank you so much for watching.